Welcome to Cloud Training for Enthusiasts. Today we're talking about Terraform. Terraform is an application. It's a code-based application that is used to manage infrastructure, also known as infrastructure as code, and it was designed by a company called HashiCorp. And to learn more about Terraform, you can go to terraform.io. So it's very interesting because Terraform seems to be more rapidly used compared to other infrastructure as code. Reason because the syntax is very easy, and it's not. It doesn't really depend. It doesn't have what we call this indentation. It doesn't follow indentation, and it's very smart. Meaning, if you want to deploy a network, you don't need to deploy VPC first before you deploy route table. Any block can decide to deploy any block first. Terraform is very intelligent enough to know what comes first when it is being deployed. So it's a very smart, can say smart, easy syntax. Smart in the sense that you don't need to, for example, if you want to deploy EC2, when we're deploying EC2 using console, we first of all create the network, right? Then after creating the network, we'll now go to EC2 and deploy it, right? But when you are building a Terraform block, you can decide to do EC2 first and now go and do Terraform VPC block later. When Terraform wants to deploy, Terraform will automatically first of all look for network first within your file. If it does not have, it will use the default in that environment, in that particular AZ availability zone. But if you have in your block, it will go to your block and look at it if the syntax is correct. If the syntax is correct, then it will you apply, you plan. You plan means just like the way you are building your house. You already put everything, you plan it. Then after planning, if the plan goes well successfully without error, you apply it. And when you apply, it means that you are telling Terraform, go ahead and deploy it. What Terraform will do, when you are planning, your Terraform will tell you everything that is going to happen in that infrastructure. It will list everything that is going to happen. So when you apply it, after applying, it will come and compare what you listed that is going to deploy and what you have deployed. It will list everything out. You understand me? Then you will now see the two version. Then if it's something that is okay, you just let go. Now, what is the only advantage is that it can also keep the stateness. It's the stateful code. What does that mean? It means that if your current infrastructure, what is inside your current infrastructure, it will list everything in your state file. You understand me? So that in case you want to ask where maybe you have deployed, you don't even know where you deployed it. You don't know how many resources that is running. Immediately you go to your state file, you can see all the resources that is running your infrastructure. And if you want to delete it, just the Terraform destroy. It will destroy everything that Terraform file applied. So meaning that there's no chances that you may mistakenly forget one resources. For example, now if you use console to arrange your infrastructure, if sometimes you are deleting, you may forget to delete NAT gateway, you may forget to delete API gateway, you may forget to delete one thing. You understand me? So, but this one, you can delete everything, easy to manage infra. The another interesting thing about Terraform is that you can write one file for one region and just change the name of the region. Are you getting me? It can replicate all your infrastructure. For example, I can write a file and it's working in region A. You understand me? As far as I'm not using the default folder, all I would just need to do is just to change the AMI name. Are you getting me? Change the AMI name. Another peculiar, and change the AMI name, then the factor, you change the zone. You understand? Then I apply it. What will happen? Automatically, it will deploy the same infrastructure in A, B, C, D. You understand me? So if I want to destroy it, I can also destroy it independently. But that which is going to be difficult if you are using console. If you can, sometimes you can
you have to be looking at book, you can forget. Now, another interesting thing of Terraform is that because it's a code-based management, because it's a code-based, you can use code-based management system to manage it, like your Git and your GitHub. The advantage is that people can also see what you want to deploy first, observe it, correct it before they approve it. So when it's approved, many people can collaborate and work before the infrastructure is being deployed. Yeah, another interesting thing is that another powerful thing is this. After all those things that I just mentioned, everybody can collaborate. I'm telling you the reason why they use Terraform. And manage with source code management, SCM management, like e.g. GitHub. Okay, now another interesting thing of Terraform is that apart from all these things, it saves cost. What do I mean by save cost? Meaning, for example, you want to deploy all your environments. And you understand? So instead of you to allow the environment to be infrastructure to be running, maybe you have done development, you want to put it in production. You have to keep production running as the code is being developed. So that when the code is finished developing, you now start creating all your resources manually and start deploying them manually. You understand? That is not the best practice. So what Terraform also helps you to do, because you can design your code without necessarily going to your Terraform AWS infrastructure to be creating these resources. So you can design your code and test it. If it works, you keep it. So when the job is ready, when we are ready to now use production environment, you just apply that code. So your infrastructure will be up within the space of 4 to 5 hours. You understand? And do your quality check. So those are the powerful things that AWS provides. So in that, it can save you because if you are going to deploy it manually, it's going to take like 1 week or 2 weeks. But if you use Terraform, 1 day, you are done. You understand? Then you can have identical infrastructure. You can manage your state file, and you can secure your state file, because sometimes if you do your state file locally, it's not going to be the best practice. So it's better you use a managed storage, maybe S3 bucket, to manage all your stateness of your files so that you can secure it. So you can provide room for security. Understand? Then, if you use Terraform Cloud, that one, you don't need to do anything locally, because Terraform Cloud has everything it takes for you to run your Terraform successfully in their environment without necessarily pulling the code into your local system. What's the disadvantage? The disadvantage is that if your Terraform file security is compromised, your system, your infrastructure can be wiped out in a day. You understand? So that is one of the disadvantages. But because of that, many best practices is being put in place when you're using Terraform. So that's one of the disadvantages. The other disadvantage is that for you to successfully deploy a Terraform source code or playbook, sometimes it has so many errors, many issues. Like, do you also do bugs in application? You have to keep debugging until you successfully do it. And 3, because Terraform is also growing, because Terraform is also improving, there's going to be room for deprecations, meaning the version that you may be using may be out of date. You understand? So there's need for you to keep upgrading and updating. Before, it was difficult for you to upgrade your infrastructure. For example, if you are using T2 minor, you want to upgrade it to T2 large. It was difficult before, but now it's no longer that difficult. You can manually, you can upgrade it automatically without necessarily affecting your infrastructure. For example, if your Kubernetes is running version 2, you can upgrade it to version 3 without necessarily destroying the infrastructure. As before, compared to before, it will destroy the infrastructure first. You understand? Which will lead to downtime. So it's still improving. It's relatively new, but it's mostly used. So that I've said about Terraform. Now let's go into Terraform file. I'll just pull, this is their site. All the Terraform language that we use, nobody knows it. You can't cram it, but just know how it's being used, know how the structure works. For example, now let's take, for example, of this block. You can see this is a module. It's to call it the source code of this module. Then it's giving the name, because this name now in this module, we override the name that was in the initial one. You understand me? So, and the CIDR block, the same CIDR block, then the AZ, this time you are giving it AZ. Then the private, you are giving it. So these are just the small variables that is going to be edited, upgraded when you run this, because this is what it's calling. This is the module that is calling. So if you look at this main file, you see the main file, the availability zone is here. See, you see the private subnet and the public subnet, they are all here. So what that file will do for you, what this file will do for you, it will replace all these parameters. Are you getting me? To replace all these parameters with the name or with the zone that you have called it. So that is why you have to, when you are using a module, sometimes you have to declare this first page. This first page is just going to update one or two stuff, but the main thing that is going to happen is that it will first of all go to this stuff. So now let's take an example. Let's try it. Okay, you can just open this say Control C. Then let me go to my VS Code. I always advise you use VS Code to run your Terraform. So this is so the extension of Terraform file is VPC. Let me just put VPC. Sorry, module. Sorry. Excuse me. Please a minute. Hello. So for you to use Terraform very well, you know, in our last class, I told us to install Terraform. So for you to use it very well, you need to, we're saving it. Okay, I'll save it here. Already exists. Okay, let me call it 2. Save. So, okay, it's putting it into 2. I don't need this. I always tell people, whenever you are writing Terraform file, always create a folder and call it, not only Terraform file, in everything you want to do, always create a folder and call it temp, TMP. The reason is that you may make some mistake, you understand? Instead of you deleting and coming back with that temporary file that you have here, you understand? With this temporary folder, you can be putting all your duplicates, you understand? And without losing anything you are doing. So this is it. Okay. So for you to use Terraform in VS Code, I always recommend you go to your extension, you type Terraform, then you install it. The reason why you are installing it is so that in case so that it can help you with the syntax. You understand me? That's one of the advantages of VS Code. It help you manage your syntax. You understand? So if you put Terraform here, you don't need to run it for you to know if it's working or not. You understand? So this is the module. This is the syntax. Okay, now I've run this. This is okay. Now that's why you are seeing all this stuff. You can see I can decide to put this. You can see, first of all, this is how Terraform works. When you are writing it in a module, you declare the module name, you open the parentheses, you close the parentheses. So every block you are doing, like this one means set. You can see this link, this thing here is not the same parentheses here. It's like, what do you call it? What do you call these things? A braces, right? A bracket. So this
that's square brackets.
This is square bracket here. This square bracket is used to write tombo. What is a tombo? Tombo is
list of variables. You understand me? So what does that mean? When you use this tumble or this square bracket, in anything, first, you will be seeing it more in cloud. It means that you are going to have a series list of things. So for example, if I'm just going to use only one region, I don't need to put this list. I'll just put only this one. I'll remove the two lists. But if it's more than one, for the regular Python language, for it to understand, you have to use list. And when you use list, you put one, you're going to return an error. So this thing is a list. So you can see each strings has open quote, close quote, open quote, close quote, open quote, close quote. This is how Terraform will see it, like, oh, this is a single word. But if you don't put quotes, for example, you just keep it like this, that this one, you can see this, there's no quote here. Terraform will see like either a bool or like a function. For example, you understand, if I'm putting private subnets like that without anything, it's going to see it as a function. But if you put anything like dot, like the way I was explaining before from the Terraform site, like you can see, let's go to this GitHub. Let's go to the real example, the complete. This is the module that you are calling. So if you don't want to use module, you can just come here and clone this. You understand me? Then use this README file to read through. You can see, to tell you everything about what you're going to deploy. So this is main. Main means the real one, the real file where the resources is going to be staying. Variables means there are some recurrent, the recurrent function, recurrent name or resources that you want the main to be referring to. Yes, so instead of you to be repeating it, you can just put it. For example, if I'm going to use VPC, the same VPC CIDR block across 2 or 3 environments, you understand? So of me to be putting VPC here, I will just put all the VPC here. You can see this variable. This one does not even have any video. They didn't even put anything here, but they are supposed to have a variable. And that variable is supposed to, you can refer to it. Mind you, when Terraform is analyzing these things, it's not going to look for variable. No, we are just it's a way of organizing things. Because all these things can be in one document. You understand? Well, we just want a situation whereby we want to see, okay, what is the version? We can come here, we see the version that you want, the version of Terraform wants to use. We can put everything in one page, it will still run. Just that when you want to troubleshoot, that's where issues will start coming. You now see line 155 and column 220. That's when you know that there is zero between I was there and I shall be there. But when you break it into module like this, it'll be easy for you to troubleshoot. If you have error in resources, you will just come here. You can see only the resources. Then if you have error in output, maybe it's not outputting. What's an output? Output is a way of telling infrastructure that immediately you finish deploying it, give me these variables. Because sometimes after you finish deploying, you need, for example, if you want to connect to EC2, after you've deployed an EC2, you want to connect to the public EC2. I see you go and copy the public IP address inside the resources. But it's not necessary you must go inside. So you can just come here and declare the output. So, okay, after you have deployed this infrastructure, give me the public IP address, output it, or the Kubernetes engine resources. You understand? Like this one, and this is going to output the EC2 ID. You understand me? Say EC2 complete ID is going to output it. Now, this one is going to output the ARON. You understand me? This is going to output the reservation specification. This will output the EC2 instance name. Yeah, you see, everything is going. This one is going to output the public network interface ID. This one will output the private DNS. You understand? So this one will output the public DNS and the public IP. So all these ones are going to output it. So when they output it, you don't need to be bothering yourself. You understand? On what and what and what. So this is a module. So this is the block.
This is the block. Imagine you writing all these things. So this one is already being designed by the AWS for you. So they have already make it so easy so that by the time the output is there, these variables, normally you're supposed to have series of data here. For example, especially if there's something that you have to keep your query like this one, you understand? So this is for this. Now, if you look at this, even at that, you can see the CIDR nodes and everything is being declared here. Now, it said EC2 complete. You can see the EC2. It said, if you want to deploy EC2, what do you do? So you come here. So what am I trying to say is that in this case, if I want to deploy a complete resources without calling any function, I just want to deploy EC2 instance and everything, I can just clone this, just come here, you know, normal git clone. Sammy, where do you clone again? This is the file. This is the example. Go to file. I think there's a way you're supposed to clone. You can just clone the whole repository. And okay, this is the clone. You can just clone the whole repository. For example, I can come here and say clone. No, this is a pub. I told you they are open source, so it must be in public stuff. So I can come here, go to my terminal, and clone it. But we are going to be doing that. But let's just first of all run the first thing, just to make our stomach sweet. You understand that we are doing the right thing. So let's do this. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, where is this? Where's my, okay, this is my terminal. Come here. That was why yesterday, on Sunday, I urged us to install AWS-CLI. If I say AWS-CLI, AWS version, I say I already have my AWS-CLI running. I'm using AWS-CLI 2 Python. So if I say clear, now ls, let's go to my document. Then under my document, I think I have a folder, I call it autopilot, pilot, auto. And what do I have? I have a folder called, is it Ansible now? Terraform, let's see. Okay, CD, Ansible. ls, you can see Terraform folder. That's my Terraform folder. This one here. Hold on, let me see where my Terraform is. My Terraform is under CT EPUB February. So my Terraform is there. Now, you can see. So I can decide to say, okay, let me make an example. Say make directory tests. Then CD test. Then ls, then git clone. And just to clone it. Right? And this is it. C2 Terraform this. You can see the example is here. The Terraform variable is here. If you look at this Terraform variable, now you can notice now, because I've cloned it in my local stuff, you can see it here. Right? This is test. This is the Terraform. You can see the variables. This is the output. This is the variables. You can see all the variables here. You can see all the variables here. This one is for create variables. What's the variable here? Whether to create an instance. This is the name. You can see the name is empty here. So it's expecting me to pass the name. It's expecting me to pass Okay, it's only name that's expecting me to pass. The EC2 name. Let me see if there's another thing you want me to pass. So all these things are variables. You can see this one talks about create. Is it to create an instance? Yes or no? True. The variable name, this is the name. It didn't give it a name here. You can see the description, the name you want to give to the EC2. It didn't give any name here. That means if I want to use these resources, I have to have a name, right? That I can use. You can pass in the name using tf-var. That's the name of the file, .tf-var. You can use it to pass variable into here. But you can see this AMI SSM parameters. You already refer to it. This is the default. That does not mean I cannot change it. The AMI name, you put none. It's the ID of the AMI used for the instance, none. So that means I'm going to declare my AMI. Then the AMI changes, ignore. Then this one is the associated public IP address, none. So that means I'm going to because nobody, you're not supposed to know this because unless the infrastructure is being deployed. So if you look at all those ones, functions and everything is being released. So for me to use this infrastructure, I must use the example. You can see this example file. In this example file, they're going to give it the name. The name is going to be here. You can see the name, they pass the name here. And resources. So now let me not confuse us more. Let's just try and run this thing. So for you to use AWS Terraform locally from your system, normally you're supposed to copy. You can write your provider. There's a part called the provider resources which is always normal, which is the best. You can see this provider here. This is where you declare the type of the module that is going to be installed in your system. So when I say provider AWS, I mean I'm going to be using AWS Terraform module. Now the region, but if I want to put my secret code and my this is where I would have put it. But it's not best practice to put any secret in your code anywhere. So that is why I'm using the SDK. That was why I say you guys should install AWS SDK. So that's the AWS-CLI. So for you to authenticate with AWS, because your Terraform is on its own, are you getting me? Because there's no credentials to log into your AWS account. So you have to configure your AWS in your local system. So if you say AWS configure, what you are trying to do is simply you are trying to tell AWS the credentials it's going to use. So the first one is AWS access key. You're supposed to put your access key here. You now say enter the secret key. Those, the secret key, when you create an IAM role, those secret key they give to you, those things they give to you. Then the default zone, where you want your default, you can put I'm using this EUS2. Then the output, I'm using JSON. You can use YAML, you can use JSON. Meaning, if there's an error, so that you can easily see it. JSON is easy it's like a normal Word, Microsoft Word. So it's similar to Microsoft Word. It's easy for you to understand. Then, when you've done with these three things, you have successfully configured your AWS-CLI with your AWS account. So automatically, in this, my system now have direct access to my AWS resources, depending on the allocation of resources that are tied to that IAM that I use to authenticate this. So if I'm doing that, that being done, ls, if I say Terraform apply here, I'm going to have issue. So what I will do, I'll just go CD example. Because this example has the complete, everything is already complete. I'll just say Terraform plan. Init, first of all, just the way you also do Git, you have to initiate. Let's go to, I want you to see something. How we do this. If you come here, you can see my example file. You can see the complete. This is the folder that I am in now. You can see we have just main, output, readme, Terraform version. This is what is listed here. This is where we are working on. Well, if I plan now, what will happen is that, sorry, if I plan here, Terraform is going to download some file inside my system. But because I'm using I'm using my local system for my backend. So you can decide to configure your backend that every thread is going to be happening. You should not put it inside your inside your system. You should put it in your AWS in your S3 bucket. So that's what. But now we are using local. If I say Terraform init, what you do, it will look at every source code. Where my Terraform? Where Terraform? Let me see. I don't have Terraform installed. Seriously? Yeah, that means I don't have Terraform installed in my system. Oh, okay. I need to install Terraform. Sorry. I think it's the other system I was practicing with. I supposed to have Terraform here. Have I uninstalled it? Okay. Let me install Terraform. But if you have installed Terraform, you can just go. Let me install Terraform. Don't use Terraform install. If I use brew install Terraform, it will work. But I'm going to be having issue. I say brew install Terraform. What will happen is that it's going to install Terraform, but the challenge is that it's going to be limited. I'm going to be having error when I'm running most of my code because it's going to go to brew and install it. But it's always the best way to install Terraform, which I shared with you guys last time. So what you will do for me now, before we, before we continue, if you have installed Terraform, just go and clone this Git. So while I install, let me share the link here. Or no need of passing through this issue. Let's start with the smallest, the easiest one, right? Right? It's better we start with the easiest. So before we start going a bit complex, let's just use this simple Terraform module that's as seen in their site. This is a Terraform module. So don't need of doing all those things I just did. Just copy all here. Only here. Control C. Create a folder. And this one, let's just create a file. Let me create a file, say simple test. A folder, please always create a folder before you create the Terraform file so that everything will be working inside your folder. You understand? Let me create a file, let's say simple test dot test main dot tf. You understand? Or you can just put simple main, yeah, main.tf. Since already the folder is already called that. Then you just paste that. So what it's going to do, you see that thing that I downloaded into my local system? He will not download it. Terraform will not, where's the module? Where's the module that I'm using? Am I using any module here? I think I'm not using any module here. Let me see. The Terraform is supposed to go and download those files. Okay, this one is not the module. This is not the one I want us to use. This is one I want us to use. Let's start with this simple deployment. This one we just deploy only. This one we just deploy only the network. Control A, delete. So it's going to replace, that module. Let me know. We're going to give it a name. We're going to give it this other node. Call this then the availability zone A, B, and C. So if you do this, I save this. Please do this. Just create a folder, sample test, download, just copy this thing and put inside. Make sure you copy the beginning and the end. And make sure you copy.
Link to that to get this file.
I'm sending it to you now. Just a simple running. Let's just start with the lowest, you understand? Because there are so many things you can do. But this one is just going to deploy VPC, 3 private subnets, 3 public subnets, go to enable the private subnet, and it's going to deploy the environment, and you're going to deploy a simple development environment, only the network. So you can come here. Let me share the link with you so that you guys can go and, excuse me. If you have configured your AWS-CLI, and you have installed your Terraform, you should be able to do that. So when you're done, just write Terraform plan and you see. Let me stop sharing. Let me give you guys the opportunity to, you can share your screen and let's try. I'm going to install let me install this thing. Let me install my Terraform. I think I removed in Terraform. Let's see what you have. Okay. I've installed Terraform now. Okay, good. I'm still recording. Okay. Okay, let's see what you have. Has anybody been able to do something? What did you see? What did you have when you were running your screen? Please share your screen. You just say Terraform init. What did you see there? Why did you say, are you running a production environment? Moses. Hmm? No, I'm seeing the meet. I'm seeing the class.
Why am I having this error? Sorry.
Let me see. Oh, let me see the error.
Just highlighting everywhere.
Hmm?
It's just highlighting everything.
I'm trying to see the. Are you the one sharing screen now?
I'm sharing my screen.
There's no error there. How do you know you're having error?
It's highlighting. Like I was working on this something like earlier on today, and I was not getting zeros. See, it's like there's no highlighting.
I just told you, don't do this. Don't do this. This is not the best practice, right? Don't do this. Follow the way I've just explained to you. Just the one I shared with you. We'll go to troubleshoot this later. Have you authenticated your AWS-CLI with your local system?
Okay, no. I'm using my Windows system, so I'm just using the what's it called?
Even with the
Code.
system, Terraform is Terraform everywhere. Moses. Okay, let me continue. What I just did was simple to put this thing here, right? Now let's go to ls. Let me test what is going on. Let me say AWS S3 list. Let me see what is going on. Error, invalid access key calling this bucket. Operation access key does not exist. So I have to authenticate my AWS. So to test if your AWS is properly authenticated, you have to first of all run AWS test command, which is, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
So for you to test, after you've configured your AWS, to see, first of all, you have to test if your AWS is properly configured, if you can access your resources. So by calling, most times it's S3 that is the easiest thing to use. I always use S3. So you don't just say plan with Terraform, it will not work. Your provider must, your AWS-CLI must authenticate first. So what we'll do, let's go to this place. Let's go to let me see if I'm still recording, so that let me close. So what I just did, I just created a simple user. I created an IAM. Oh shit. Oh God. So I just created a simple IAM account code. You understand? This simple one. And I just call it Terraform. I call it Terraform. I give it administrative rights. Because I just want to use it for this project. Normally you are supposed to, the resources you want this account to have, that's what you do. But I just created a user, attached administrative role to it, then directly to it, and I copy the access code under security credentials. Then I created an access key, which was what I just shared just now. Then it worked. And this is the other SSK and everything. So I use it to configure my CLI. When I did, for me to check if it's working, just say AWS, let's say AWS VIP, let's say S3 list. So it would to go to my AWS, since it did not return anything, means that there is no error, there's no resources inside there. But for me to check again, I can say AWS help -- help to give me syntax, all the syntax I need to do. AWS, let's just minus first one help to give me, wait, what do you say? Usage. Then the profile name. What is it? My profile name? Profile and a debug. So it tells me all my syntax. Just look like, man, I want to use anything. It's what I just want to go to. Okay, Control C. Escape. Let's say AWS VPC. And tell me how I'm going to use the VPC. These are the syntax for VPC. These are the syntax for VPC. So if you want to use anything, I say AWS EC2, you're going to give me all this. It's going to ask me because it's not complete. So let's continue with what we have. Yes, there's a sheet I'm going to share where you see all the AWS syntax. Now I've already authenticated my AWS Terraform. Now I've already have my Terraform file here. I want us to test something. I want us to test this file. You just say Terraform. You know what's inside this file? This main file is that thing I said you should copy from that side just now, right? So it's going to be referring to this module. That's the module I shared with you, the name, CIDR block, and everything. So if I come here and I said Terraform plan, Terraform init, that's the first thing. So it's going to initiate everything. You can see it's initiating all the resources. We install everything that we mentioned in that Terraform. You can see it says Terraform has successfully initiated. You can see, say Terraform has successfully initialized. You can see that file, normally it was just having just one file before, right? Now it now has .terraform, just like the way it also have in in Git, the same thing. So this .terraform, we're able to see it because we are using this place. But if you are using regular stuff, you may not see. If you are using from the folder, it's because it's dot, so it's going to be hidden. So this is the module. This is the module that they pull. You can see, does it different from that module that I pulled that time? So it pulled this module into my system because that's what it's going to use. Just pulled it. This is Terraform. It has pulled the module. This is the provider, which is AWS. You understand? These are the things inside this .terraform file. Now, this lock will tell you what all the processes that it has followed through. Please, sorry, you can see them here. These are the lock, the provider, the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and all of them have their own stuff. Then we have for example, you see the Terraform module I talked about. See, everything is going to be here. YAML, pre-commit, release. This one is for the Git. This is for the VPC. If you look at this VPC plus the module that you have, they are the same thing. The module that we put that I showed you just now from their site. So because I'm using this module in this block, it's going to pull, because I use module here. So you want to pull this module and put it inside this Terraform file. So that was what you saw just now. Now, let's plan. Do you understand? This is where we are. This is what we are using. Here is a simple test. I think, which one are we using? We're using simple test, right? Come on. Terraform simple test. So this is what is happening. This is the only file we wrote. But you want to pull this file inside this Terraform. Then this is the name. This is the VPC. So this is what we are going to have. So now let's plan. Make sure that whenever you are working, you work inside where the file is. I see the file is here. You can see, despite it has so many things inside, but you can only see only .main file. Unless you see the ls-al, you will not see all the folders that are hidden. But from VS Code, you can see everything. So now let's clear. I say Terraform plan. So what it's going to do now, it will look at that VPC module and plan all the resources. So it's going to tell you this is what is going to happen. If you apply this module, this is what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to create ARN, which is not known now, but after you apply it, it will know. Then the owner's ID, then the environment is the environment. The name of the VPC is going to be called my VPC default Terraform true. So these are the ingress, ingress. So these are the things that is going to happen. So these are the things that is going to happen if I apply it. Now let's apply. Let's plan. Let's apply. So it's going to release 32 instances. But now there is nothing inside. There's nothing to destroy. There's nothing to change. So now let's go to, let's say Terraform. Apply. If I say Terraform apply, to apply everything, that means it's going to create the resources. But if I don't want it to ask me a question again, do I really want to apply it? But if you don't want to answer that question, you just press -- auto approve. So now what it's asking me is that, do you want to perform these resources, which is the same thing, 32? If I say yes, then what will happen? You see, I have started creating all the resources. So if I go to my AWS account, I go to my AWS account. Then I go to EU, let's say VPC. Let's say I'm going to the region. Which region did we ask it to? You can see, go to your main. It's still creating, but let's see. We say you should go to EU West 1. So go to our EU West 1 of the AWS resources. This is EU West 1. Go to our VPC. You will notice that it will start creating those resources one after the other. So if this is where we say you should create EU West 1, we'll create all the resources one after the other. EU, okay, this is West, that's East 1, this is West 1. Okay. So this is EU West 1, right? EU, US West 1. Is it US West 1 or EU West 1? Let's be sure. Okay, it's EU West 1. Where is EU West 1? Is here. EU West 1. So when it's done creating, you're going to see it here. What happened? There's an error. Excuse me. It has created gateway, created EC2 subnet, invalid parameters for EU West 1 4. Availability is invalid. It says subnet can currently only have one, create only one of the following availability zone, this. So that means our resources, EU West 1. So we're supposed to be having EU2, EU West 2B, 2C. So that means this place that we have here is not correct. So what we'll do, you just, this is the error that it's having now. It said, if you go to this, it said this EU West, one that we use in our default stuff does not exist. So we should replace it with this. So let me replace it, Control V. Then if I replace it, I'm going to also have, normal this, and normal this. Okay. Okay. Save. And that's the issue that it has. That's why it returned with error. So now since we already corrected that, let's reapply it again. So most times you may not even have error until when you are applying. It's when you are applying that you now have, you see where the error is. So that's why most times the first application that you do with Terraform, that first one, is always the major issue that you always have. But if you're able to write it successfully the first time, every other thing will become easy. So it's creating gateway, the NAT gateway, let's go to our resources. Refresh this. EU West 1. Subnets, let's see. It's going to be, I think there's going to be an error. Let's see. So, see creating. So I have created one NAT gateway, successful. It's creating the second NAT gateway. I'm just testing, right? But don't worry. Is there any, can you see my screen? Is anybody still here? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay. Hope you understand what I'm doing, right? You can test it on your own. Must not wait for me. You can also use your system to test it. I can take the risk now because I know when I'm done, I will destroy it. You can see, say apply complete resources, 18 resources was created, 6 was changed, and nothing was destroyed. I come here, I refresh. If I'm in the right location, I'm supposed to see the VPC up. But if I'm not seeing the VPC up, that means I'm in the wrong location. EU West 1. Let me see where this resources was created. EU West 2. Oh, sorry. Let's take note of all these things. EU West 2. You can see this is the one we just created now. We look at what we created. It has the subnet. It has 6 subnets. Inside the 6 subnet, it has routing table. This is private. This is for private. This is public. This is for private. This is public. So it created VPC interior availability zone 2A, 2B, and 2C. Then the subnet and everything, just with one code. So you see, if I share this thing with you now to apply it, when you apply it, you're going to have the same function, the same thing that will also going to be deployed, the same environment. Can you just try it? Let's try it before we destroy. So that same thing, let me copy this one that is already correct now. Okay, I think my AWS default zone was actually AWS configure. Let me see my AWS default zone here. I think I'm using my default zone was, that's why I had that error. Let me see my default zone. I think I'm using EU West 2. That's why it's having that. So if you want to use it, the way it is, you put your default zone as EU West 1. You understand? Then you don't need to change anything. But if you deploy it using your default zone at EU West 2, that's when you will not change, because every region has their own nomenclature. You understand? It has their own naming pattern. So you can go ahead and try this. Let me send it to you. Just for us to feel good, you understand? Before we start doing, just feel good. Apply this one, feel good. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing now. Okay, let me see you do it. Let's have it. Moses, are you there? Moses. Moses. There he is. Let me stop sharing. Let me stop recording.